Good morning, viewers, and welcome to the Wash Talks. Today is International Women's Day, a day when we celebrate the social, cultural, economic, and political achievements of women, a day when a clarion call is given to take action for accelerating gender equality all over the world. So, what would be a better way to celebrate this festival of women with a woman who is the head of an organization which is strongly committed to deliver lasting and transformative changes in the lives of women, children, and adolescent boys and girls. So I take the opportunity to welcome Ms. Nafisa Binte Shafique, CFO UNICEF Bihar, as the esteemed guest for today's session of the Wash Talks. Welcome, ma'am, and wish you a very happy Women's Day.
Thank you so much, Madhurima, and also wishing you a happy International Women's Day. Also wishing happy International Women's Day to all the viewers of this episode today.
Thank you. So the theme of this year's International Women's Day is Break the Bias. So in this context, ma'am, I would like to know, how do you perceive the role of women in this context vis-a-vis WASH? And what do you think, are women being assigned a just and equitable share in the water, sanitation and hygiene ecosystems, and whether the current policies and program framework that has been designed for women, do they adequately address the WASH needs of women, and do they ensure a meaningful participation to women and leadership roles to women and girls in the management of water and sanitation resources and provisions?
Thank you so much, Madhurima, for that very interesting question. I would really like to start with two very critical words which might be, across the discussion, we will be looking at it from that perspective. One is human rights and the other one is human dignity. These are extremely two important aspects that we need to consider when we are talking about development or equitable access to services or any, areas in terms of development. Now, when it comes to WASH is really a very critical pathway for transforming the gender relations between a girl and a boy, man and a woman. It's a really, really important pathway for transforming the entire society. However, responding to your question, I think the policies do not discriminate. Policies are saying that every citizen or every human being in the country. So I don't think that there is a discrimination there. However, when it comes to translating the policies into action, particularly in the WASH sector, I think it's very much biased towards men and boys, and women and girls are being perceived as just a mere recipient of the services, and even in that matter, it's not really taken as their as per their needs. What are their needs, and then of course the rights and dignity perspective will also come in. Now, there are a number of barriers for girls and women to obtain WASH services, and it could be physical, it could be institutional, it could be economic, or it could be attitudinal. So all these barriers are actually, we see that there are biases towards men or towards one part of the society as compared to maybe girls and women. So if you look at the WASH sector, I don't really have to mention it again and again, and you have been working in this area for quite some time, so you know that WASH is taken as a service led by a bunch of male engineers. I'm sorry, with due respect to all those male colleagues out there. And also, if you look at the operations and maintenance are predominantly a male area of work. So I really don't think, following your question, my answer, my shortest answer to that is no. Girls and women are not having equitable share in terms of not only, accessing the services, but also having their share in the decision-making process, in planning, in implementation, in monitoring. I really don't think that girls and women are getting their fair share of that. It is changing. I mean, there are policies which talks about it. It is changing. I must say that that's the good news, but not to the scale that will make us happy to see that men and women, girls and boys having equal share of wash services, and also, as I said, decision making, because it hugely influences their lives. The decisions are being taken not considering, as I said, their needs, and then that influences their lives. Now, the other aspect that I wanted to mention here is girls and women are quite often taken as a passive recipient of the services. But again, when we are considering them as the recipient, their needs are not being prioritized. And if I talk about, the sexual reproductive health needs, including menstrual hygiene, it is very important that we consider their needs more than considering them as merely a recipient of the services. So I think that what is also very important to mention here, not only WASH, but WASH these days or recently will also include climate resilience and climate change, where women and girls, they play a very critical role, and that has not been really stepped up to see that there is an equality in terms of again climate change and climate resilience. And we know that girls and women, they pay the highest price of climate change or climate crisis, and they are the ones who should be much more resilient to this climate crisis, and then we need to definitely do a lot more to bring them at par with men and boys, and make it really a planet with 50-50, not only the service or not only as the recipient of the service, but also making the decisions, making active role, engaged in the process of planning, implementation, monitoring. We need to really step up to make it a planet 50-50, where men and boys, girls and women will play absolutely equal roles. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So, women-centric programming in WASH, I think, is essential to support women to take over the responsibilities in the WASH sector, to participate actively in the decision-making process, in the planning and provision of the WASH services. And then only sustainability in WASH will be ensured, because naturally women have been traditionally their role has been very important in this sector, although it has come to be recognized later on.
Yeah.
But women as primary users of waters, as the care, as their role in caring for children, as well as far as their sexual and reproductive health needs are concerned.
Yeah.
So access to water, sanitation and hygiene is of utmost importance to women.
Absolutely. So I just want to add something here, Madhurima, which needs to be, because I hear that a lot, that women as the caregiver of children, they need more access to water. But my point here is we are talking about gender transformative approach here, and we need to bring men as the caregiver as well. So if it is an equality that we are talking about, I think men should come in as caregivers, and they then would know what it takes to bath a child, or what it takes for washing, cleaning, all those domestic chores. So what I want to say that as much as men are making the decisions about water and sanitation, they also need to see the other part of it, how it is to be as a recipient of that service when they are in that role. So it is absolutely a role that can be played by both father and mother, and I don't see it to be tagged as, and I don't encourage anyone to consider the caring practices where water and sanitation comes in to be perceived as a women's domain. The other thing that I might not have highlighted as much as I should is women's leadership and girls' leadership is extremely important. for planning, as I mentioned earlier, but also budget allocation, because they know what it needs to when it comes to financial. And budget doesn't mean only state level or national level budget. I'm talking about even a household level budget should be engaging them, and they need to take lead and more active leadership in this sense.
And then only women can be empowered in the right sense.
Absolutely.
As we all know, UNICEF is an organization which is mandated for the realization of children's rights. So we are seeing also that UNICEF is regularly stepping up its engagement with adolescent girls, boys and children. Either they are being used as resources because they have fresh new ideas and they can contribute to innovative solutions, or they are being used as change agents for mobilizing the communities or for bringing about behavioral changes in their own communities, because they have a unique and very sound knowledge not only of their needs and concerns but also the needs and concerns of the communities. So we see that UNICEF is very actively engaging children in this direction. But ma'am, what I would like to know is how do you see building up a WASH responsive future generation by engaging children and adolescent boys and girls, specifically in the WASH domain?
Thank you so much for that interesting question, Madhurima. It's one of my favorite topics to discuss. So thank you so much for giving me that opportunity. First of all, I would like to start with the statement that I don't think that we are aiming to have only a WASH responsive future generation or a whole generation of children and adolescents. What we are actually trying to have is, or aiming for, and striving day and night to have empowered generation who can take their decisions, whether it is for the WASH, nutrition, education, holistic. So as you know that we are guided by our normative framework. We are guided by the Convention of the Rights of a Child, and CRC has many articles to explain what are the rights of a child, and irrespective of country, geographical location, ethnicity, religion, and sex. So for every child we talk about having all those rights. Now when you mention about holistic, I like that word, because holistic also brings the fullness to what we are trying to do, because each right is actually individual rights, but it is not indivisible to other rights. So we can't really have all our. That's why we work in all the sectors. We cannot have one right realized and not the others, and that is the indivisibility. So I cannot send my child to a school for education and not ensuring that my child has access to safe drinking water and sanitation, not ensuring that my girl is having access to appropriate menstrual hygiene in school or at home or anywhere they go. So the indivisibility of rights is extremely important for us to understand for a holistic development of children and adolescents. Now we work in the first decade more as focusing more on service delivery. So whether it is health, nutrition, education, and then of course WASH cuts across and many other services. But for the second decade of life, which is 10 to 19, which is which falls under the definition of adolescence, we essentially focus on empowering adolescents or those children who can be actually change agents of their communities and their societies, and of course of the household, and at one point in total nation and also globally, they can actually play the critical role of becoming the change agents. Now in that sake, I think what we constantly do is providing them or equipping them with holistic knowledge. So they need to know about their rights, what needs to be done about nutrition, about health, about WASH, about disaster risk reduction, about gender, everything. So they need to know about everything. And then and of course it all falls under also their health and well-being, overall health and well-being, because health by definition is actually not only physical health but also mental health and spiritual health. So if we equip them with knowledge, then with adequate skills, and which we call life skills. You might have also heard about life skills, and also 21st century skills, because life skills and knowledge might not be adequate. Then we have to really bring in the 21st century skills like financial literacy, digital literacy, which are the needs of our now. They need those. They are 21st century children and adolescents, they need those. And then also equipping them with those skills so they can practice the knowledge that they have acquired. So not knowing that open defecation is not good for health and environment is not enough. They need to really translate that into action, and that's why they need those skills to translate it into a behavior or a practice to that extent. And then we also talk about giving them access to the services, which are appropriate and adequate services, be it in health or nutrition or education or disaster risk reduction or whatever. So they need to also know about the services, and the services should be ready to access those, to provide those friendly services, considering the needs of those children and adolescents. And when we are talking about children and adolescents here, it is every child and every adolescent, again, irrespective of their background or their age or their sex or anything. Now in that case, once they acquire all these, they become much more civically engaged, and that's where they start to demonstrate kind of a very active change agent in the society, because then what happens is they know that they need to practice that, and it becomes part of their DNA. It becomes part and parcel of their life. And as I said, be it in health or nutrition or WASH, that is our mantra, that equip adolescents, and they will, and within a generation we will be able to see, and we have been actually witnessing the change when we work with adolescents to make them change agents. And as you know, that we also work in all the sectors, all possible sectors that you can think of for development and also for humanitarian purposes. So we have this, we are supporting government for establishing Minamanch. They have actually established, and we are trying to help them to kind of augment that platform, Minamanch, and then also Bal Sansad. There are Kishori Samuhos. There are also the Safe Saturday program, where children come and talk about and learn about the disaster risk reduction, including WASH related issues. So those are the platforms where they learn, they become active change agents, and then they start going out there in their families, communities, friend circles, and start talking about those issues. And you see the percolation effect, ripple effect that creates just by with a group of adolescents. When they are empowered, they just go out and they can really do magical changes in the community and in the environment. So one thing I think I forgot to mention here is, it's not only equipping them and keeping the services which are providing child and adolescent friendly services, but also we need to create and ensure an enabling and protective environment. And that is what we have been doing with government, not only in Bihar but also in most of the states in India and globally. That is our strategy, that we need to ensure an enabling and protective environment for children and adolescents, so they can really become an active change agents of the society. And that's how they will be taking forward all the agenda that we think, their agenda, their life, as you know about also Greta Thunberg, who has changed the entire world, just with her strong advocacy. And that is what we would like to see. And even in Bihar, in my last 1 year, I have witnessed a lot of girls and boys, how they became champions of their own lives and their own friend circles, and they are constantly advocating for ensuring their rights, including wash-related rights.
So, ma'am, what I can gather from what you have informed us is that children are, and adolescent boys and girls are being engaged in the wash sector. As you've already said, it is also basically an engineering sector, thought of as an engineering sector, a male bastion which is mostly dominated by males, whether it is at the top echelon or whether it is at the bottom level, including the masons, who are all males. So it is really commendable that in such a sector which is dominated by males, children and adolescent boys and girls are being given an opportunity to voice their concerns and to do the work of advocacy, going into their community and motivating people, their parents, their peer groups to bring about behavioral changes in the areas like open defecation, which has made a great progress under the Swachh Bharat mission. So it is really encouraging that platforms like Meena Manch and platforms like Bal Sansad, where children are given an opportunity to take the leadership roles and then advocate this major concern of the community, which is a major concern for humanity today. So, ma'am, UNICEF is integrating strategies in its programs and in its policies that basically address gender-specific discrimination and disadvantages. So, we would like to know what is UNICEF's approach towards breaking the gender bias and towards challenging the inequalities in wash sector vis-a-vis the support or the networking or the advocacy support or the interventions that you are making in this sector.
Thank you so much again for a very interesting question, Madhurima. I would really like to mention here two things at two levels. One, as UNICEF, whether it is nationally or at the state level, we have been contributing to the the national missions like the Swachh Bharat mission or the Jal Jeevan mission. So these are some of the the chapeau missions that we are contributing at different levels to really make it like an equitable implementation of those missions. And we, particularly in Bihar, as you know, that it is a state where the gender biases are quite strong, and then it is a deeply patriarchal society as well. So it is not that easy to make a change or a difference overnight. So we have been working, for many years now, and recently what we have done is there is a kind of a small proof of concept to see how we can bring women leadership in this word implementation, the word implementation management committees, as well as in local level management committees. So women leadership, we have and then we are generating those what are the outcomes and how did we do that. So it's all documented, which will actually give us a lot of strength to advocate for taking it to another level. So this is a small proof of concept. We need to take it to a scale to really make a difference, and as I said, making it a win-win and a planet 50-50 game, or Bihar 50-50 game. And I think that the other thing that I must mention here is the menstrual hygiene part. I mean, we have strategically worked with multi-ministries, and not only with wash sector, but multi-ministries, because menstrual hygiene is one area where all the sectors, whether it is education, WCDC, and of course the wash sector, health and nutrition, everyone can play a critical role and should play a critical role. So we have worked with different multi-ministry with on menstrual hygiene. We also helped to develop a kind of a policy paper on menstrual hygiene. It is yet to see the kind of the endorsement, or yet to receive the endorsement from the government. But I think by now some of the data are already obsoleted, so we will be kind of updating, and we will see how we can take it forward. But you must have also heard about the red dot, and then also Saheli, I forgot the name, the Hindi name of that, but I think that's also a very important, and then Garima. These are some important initiatives for on menstrual hygiene, which is a lot on breaking the bias, because menstrual hygiene itself is a taboo, and talking about it, taking it to another level. When I see just a few months back on the Children's Day, a girl came and spoke about menstrual hygiene in school in front of minister and a lot of adults, male and boys, and it gave me such immense pleasure to see that a girl coming to that level, speaking about menstruation, which is heavily a taboo,
subject.
That is what we call also breaking the taboos. But also in terms of biases, I think that it is not only a girl's issue. It actually affects to a great extent even men and boys in the communities. So we need to really break that bias that you can't talk about menstruation, or you can't talk about reproductive health related issues. So these are some of the biases, and again, as you rightly mentioned, Madhurima, that this is actually a very male dominated sector, starting from the policymakers to the mason, everyone. But that small, I would not say it's a pilot, it's a proof of concept, where bringing women of the community to another level in the community, in the same environment, to a leadership role. I think that is a lot in terms of breaking the biases towards men and boys in terms of wash sector, and bringing girls and women. So I think we are continuously and constantly striving for making a parity and also bringing the equality. And another big piece of our work is social and behavior change communication, and through that we are not only trying to influence the thought process and also the the behaviors of girls and women, but also men and boys. And I don't know whether you are aware of our programming. We have a country program for a few years, and then we go to another country program for another few years, looking at what is the situation, analyzing the situation of children, adolescents and women in that given country. So our next country program is now being developed, and we are in the process of designing that, and we are big time focusing on two very important aspects of programming. One is gender transformative approach. So we are talking about really addressing the root causes of how these are manifested by different behaviors or different social norms. So addressing the root cause of that, engaging men and boys in a much more active manner in all these areas, and also equity is another big piece that we are our next CPD will be focusing on. So this equity and gender transformative approach will definitely help us to take the good work of so many years to another level, and really see that Bihar is changing significantly in terms of bringing breaking the biases and bringing the equality to achieve more sustainable results for the future generation. And I always end my talk by saying बच्चे बच्ची आगे और किशोर किशोरी आगे तो बिहार आगे. Thank you, Madhurima.
Thank you, ma'am. That was really a nice message which you have delivered to the children and youth of today, and for a sustainable tomorrow. This is very essential. Thank you, ma'am, for such an enlightening and such an informative discussion on gender inclusion in WASH, engagement of women and children and the adolescent boys and girls in the WASH domain, which had always excluded, I think, these two sections of the population, and on how women-centric programming can improve women's participation and decision making in the WASH management. So thank you so much, ma'am, and I would like to end this talk with a very valuable information or very valuable message being provided by you, which we can deliver to the audiences on the occasion of Women's Day.
I think my last message, which is aligned with the International Women's Day's theme this year, I would like to urge all the audiences to break the biases, to make Bihar a much more equitable and also equitable society, and also ensure that every girl and women have their rights that they deserve. Thank you.